So today is Thursday and it's a day for getting things done. And anytime that my Mac decides that it's going to just die, I've been suffering reboots for, let's see, in the last 10 minutes, it's rebooted about 5 times. So I'm not a very happy camper, but you know what? I'm thankful at the same time because I recognize my tech addiction. And this gives me a fantastic opportunity to recenter and pull back and basically become thicker, more solid in my perspective of reality. And you know, a lot of it's so easy for us to run ahead of ourselves, to become so invested in a thing as if to gain some satisfaction from the exchange. And this is how we run ahead of God. A lot of us who are Christian believe that the Lord is on our side all the time, and we run ahead and we think that God is on our side. Yet there's lots of different aspects. My mind automatically went back to what I was recently learning about the Jewish revolt against Rome and how Rome utterly crushed them, and painting Rome, political Rome, as the enemy. They viewed themselves as being oppressed, and there's not to say that they weren't, yet looking through the lens of history, we can see how the Roman roads led up to what we have now, which is the spreading of the gospel and the salvation of many, many people. And now Rome serves as a footstool for Yeshua. And I think there's a very valuable lesson in this, which is to say, not everything is as it's presented to you. It's been a long time since I've made a recording, and, you know, I'm thankful to the Lord that He's given me a couple of really great summations of what's been going on in the political landscape. Politics is like chess. Both sides have to recognize that there's a war that's going on. You do have an opponent, and your opponent is trying to lure you into compromising positions. The difference between the winners and the losers, however, is that the winners think long term, they strategize well in advance, and they're watchful and vigilant against seemingly good feeling positions or, cheap lures. A pawn here, an expendable piece over there. But the idea is that the winner is trying to lure you into a position so that they can make that final move, that checkmate against the most valuable pieces. If a player is not aware of the value of certain pieces, they will equate the pawn to be a king and the king to be a pawn, and their border equal as anybody else's border. And soon the game is lost because there are rules. I just came across a fantastic article that was speaking on the emotivism, or lack of reasoning that's found amongst many, I hate to say it, liberals. I used to be a liberal. I used to think that I used to go for what seemed good at the time, and the more that I learned, you know what, I didn't even want to learn in the beginning. I am the repentant liberal. I've grown up, and I now realize that what I used to think before was childish, wishful. There's difference between, and I've been engaged in different conversations, and they churn around in my mind, and perhaps you might consider it suffering. I don't. I consider it clarity. There's much to be learned from discourse and dialogue, and it's got me learning even more. So I love discourse. I love conversations. I love arguments. If I were a cheerleader, I wouldn't be a cheerleader for a football team. I would be a chess cheerleader, because I just think that, cognitive to think, to be able to strategize and think well, that's a fantastic trait. That kind of ensures survival. I mean, on the most basic biological as a female, you want your mate to be able to secure your life and your children's means of living. I used to be a liberal. I used to think that, I used to buy the line. I used to go for change. I remember when the most that people looked forward to was their leader having brown skin, as if that really accomplished anything. You know, you see how in the game of chess, what you get, you have an opportunity to grasp at something, but you've moved into a compromising position. And as Hitler said, the way in which you, what was it he said? Let me just go ahead and pull up the quote because I'm going to end up misquoting him. You know what? Truly, I hate that I'm about to quote Hitler. I'm just going to let you know that right now. The only reason that I'm bringing up Hitler is because somebody engaged in dialogue with me on my Facebook page. And they said something to the effect of, well, can't we learn from Hitler? I mean, aside from the genocide, there's stuff to learn. And I thought to myself, why would you want to choose from all people to learn? Did you hear that little cutoff? Yeah, that was my laptop rebooting. Take 2. Okay, here it is. This is the Hitler quote. And you know what? You can learn. There's people who say you can learn from everything. Well, if that's the case, then you never really grow because you're in a constant state of learning. What you have to do eventually is to say, I know this. Now I know this. And once you stand on that, then you're able to defend what you know. I don't like the idea of looking to tyrants for the purposes of learning something or learning where they went wrong so that we can implement some portion of what they did. Dude was a thief and he was a murderer. And all of his steps led up to that because that was ultimately what was in his heart. He was an extremely malevolent and bitter individual who lived on the charisma and the attention of the crowds. He was a pure narcissist. He leveraged their greed, he leveraged their anxiety, their hatred, their fear to murder people. In the Bible it says, do not associate with an angry man lest you learn his ways and become like him. Then you have an awful lot to unlearn. We have a significant portion of the population that are looking to tyrants as if to, because they admire them in some way. Yet they don't realize that deep within their heart of hearts, there is that bitterness and that malevolence that they themselves are not saying no to. Like attracts like. Hitler said, the best way to take control over a people and control them utterly is to take a little of their freedom at a time, to erode rights by 1,000 tiny and almost imperceptible reductions. In this way, the people will not see those rights and freedoms being removed until past the point at which these changes cannot be reversed. You can tell from the nature of the words, the nature of the language that he used, that he almost delighted in the taking away of people's rights. He delighted in it. This is a sick man. This is a very, very sick man. And there is no way, and if you start to delight in those things, there's something wrong with you. We live in an age now where the rights of people are being, you know what? No, I'm just going to state it bluntly. They're using the kids. Children are not able to differentiate between what is good and what is bad. They want candy all the time because it tastes good. They don't understand that it will spoil their dinner, it will affect their growth development. Yet children will whine and cry and scream if they don't get their way. And you, as a parent, have got to learn to put your foot down and recognize that the child is a child. We have people, quote unquote grown-ups, who cry and scream when you try to tell them about the biological differences between men and women. They are outraged by this. Why? Because they wish to say that children are as adults and that adults are as children. I once walked this line. I can tell you, it is very easy a mindset to put on that everyone is just like you. I used to be a child, but then I put away childish things. America needs to grow up. The child is lured by the promise of candy. Yeshua said, even as I read this morning in Luke 6, he said, "To what shall I compare this generation? It is as children sitting in the marketplace, calling to one another. We played the flute for you, but you did not dance. We sang a dirge, but you did not mourn. That was then, over 2,000 years ago. Question is, do you believe, this is the question I would put to my listeners, do you believe that this generation is more wise than our previous ancestors? Do you really think that we are somehow more intelligent, more capable, and more in control of ourselves and in control of our future destinies than, say, the founding fathers of this country? The war is on the core values let's take it down even further, what it means to be human and what it means to have ancestors, what it means to have a history, to have a past, and what it is to look on today and see the children throwing their birthrights in the mud. Don't look up to the tyrants of history and claim that some kind of way, you're learning a great lesson. No, you're learning to be like them. Stop looking at the murderers, the rapists, except to understand that people are like that and that you need to defend yourself against them. Another beautiful idea that the Lord gave me, and because I was thinking about the gun issues, the gun control issues. I don't even like to say it. No, the gun issues, the right to bear arms. That's what it all boils down to anyway. As far as chess pieces go, this is a big one, guys. This is not a pawn. This is not, you know what? Every piece is valuable. The First and the Second Amendment are two sides of the same coin. The First Amendment says you have the right to express your opinion. You have the right to have your own understanding of the facts that are presented to you, and you're allowed to voice that. Your reasoning, your opinions. You're allowed to present contrary information because you know what it is. It's all about the seeking of truth. So you have a right to present that. You have a right to express that. The Second Amendment says you have the right to defend yourself against those who would hate you for it. So on the one hand, you have the right to express, and on the other hand, you have the right to defend yourself from those who would hate you for it. How can you possibly attempt to erode those two things and still call yourself a free human being? Why do you let the children in the marketplace tell you how to run the shop? Thank you for listening. The First and the Second Amendment are two sides of the same coin. The First Amendment says you have the right to express your opinion. You have the right to have your own understanding of the facts that are presented to you, and you're allowed to voice that. Your reasoning, your opinions. You're allowed to present contrary information because you know what it is. It's all about the seeking of truth. So you have a right to present that. You have a right to express that. The Second Amendment says you have the right to defend yourself against those who would hate you for it. So on the one hand, you have the right to express, and on the other hand, you have the right to defend yourself from those who would hate you for it. How can you possibly attempt to erode those two things and still call yourself a free human being? Why do you let the children in the marketplace tell you how to run the shop? Thank you for listening.